Today, we're talking to people who've just seen Woody Allen's new movie, What's Up, Tiger Lily, and we're going to ask them some provocative questions. Sir, do you feel that after seeing What's Up, Tiger Lily, your love life will be more richly endowed? No. Well, then, would making love Woody Allen style give you a headache? No. Did you view Woody Allen's What's Up, Tiger Lily with 36-24-36 vision? No. May I have your name, please? Woody Allen, but I'm immune to all this. I've seen What's Up, Tiger Lily 924 times.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're going to kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, Doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hey there, you found the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And this week we look at an early example of mass-marketed movie mockery with What's Up, Tiger Lily from 1966.
What's Up, Tiger Lily is directed by Woody Allen. It was written by Woody Allen with help from Louise Lasser, Len Maxwell, Julie Bennett, Frank Buxton, Mickey Rose, and Bryna Wilson. The film was conceived by Henry G. Saperstein and Ben Shapiro and produced by Henry G. Saperstein and Ruben Brukovich for Benedict Pictures.
What's Up, Tiger Lily stars Tatsuya Mihashi as Phil Moskowitz, Akiko Wakabayashi as Sukiyaki, Mihama as Teriyaki, Tadao Nakamura as Shepherd Wong, Susumu Kurobi as Wing Fat, Sachio Sakai as Hoodlum, Hideo Amamoto as Cobraman, Tetsu Nakamura as Foreign Minister, Osman Yusuf as Gambler, Kumi Mizuno as Phil's date.
And appearing are Woody Allen as himself and the projectionist, and Len Maxwell appears as himself, and they both dub voices in the film along with Julie Bennett, Frank Buxton, Louise Lasser, and Mickey Rose. And the Lovin Spoonful appear as themselves.
What's Up, Tiger Lily has a cold open. You see a car racing through a town and then out of town.
We're thrown right into the action here, and the men are speaking Japanese, and it's very difficult for us as Americans, not educated in the Japanese language, to know what's happening.
Well, it's kind of obvious. There's two guys standing by the side of the road. They get shot at. They duck out of the way. The car turns around and comes back. And this time, the person inside the car uses a flamethrower to set the whole scene ablaze.
We cut away to where a girl is tied up and there are men standing around her. And one is sitting at a control panel that seems to operate a very complicated looking buzzsaw. You don't usually have a control panel to operate those.
Oh, well, you do if you want to aim a person into it, I guess. That's the difference. And that's just what's happening. She's on a slow motion track that's leading her directly into the teeth of the saw.
We cut back to the two men we saw earlier, and now they're sitting in the back of a car. Sirens are going, and one of them checks his watch.
Back with the girl, she faints as the saw gets close enough to cut into her skirt.
The car with the two men in it approaches the building. They get out and run toward the building. Down a hallway, they're chased by bad guys.
Couldn't really tell what was going on here. I didn't know if it was like the entire police force or what.
The two men go through a doorway and a cage door slams down from the ceiling, separating them from the bad guys.
But it's not their building, so how did they manage to swing that one? That's why I didn't understand.
Well, I think that it was supposed to trap them on the other side, but they were just too quick.
Oh, good for them.
Same thing happened in Star Wars.
The two men we saw at the very beginning make it to the room where the girl is about to be sawed in half, and they shoot at the saw controls and stop it.
The men who are standing in the room are not happy about this, and they gather around the two men, one of whom removes his jacket, because this is going to get a little messy.
Not saw through the abdomen messy, but there's going to be a fight.
They speak some Japanese to each other, and then they start to fight.
Yeah, the two men seem to be taking on about 3 thugs each. However, those thugs are polite enough to take turns, going at their opponents one at a time.
Suddenly the action stops. We have a freeze frame, and we're in an office where Len Maxwell informs us that we've been watching a film from Japan. He's sitting here with Woody Allen, the author of this film, and he asks Woody to elaborate on this.
Woody says that Hollywood wanted to make the ultimate spy film, so naturally they came to him. And why is that, you ask? Because death is his butter and danger is his bread, or is it the other way around, or was he right the first time?
Death and danger are various breads and various butters. So what they did was they took a Japanese film with raping, killing, and looting in it, and they wiped out the soundtrack and then dubbed in comedy.
Hard to imagine what comedy goes with raping, but actually there is no raping in this movie.
Len says he'd never heard of this being done before, and Woody informs him that it was actually done with Gone with the Wind, but not many people know that.
Yeah, those are all Japanese actors with American dubbed voices. Then Lenny asks if we can run the film now, and Woody agrees, and he starts the projector.
So the credits play out as the Lovin Spoonful performs Pow for the first time in the film, while an animated Woody Allen reacts to the woman featured in the credits. And Woody helps the ratings board by covering up her naughty bits when necessary.
The credits inform us that this is a no-star cast, and then tells us that the Lovin Spoonful will be in the film courtesy of Kama Sutra Records, and that the movie has special assistance by the voice cast that we mentioned earlier, and Woody Allen wrote the film.
So when we get back to the film, we are now in a club. There's an exotic dancer on a stage, gyrating to an instrumental by the Lovin Spoonful. The two men from before the credits are in the audience.
They think that she's doing great. One of them mentions, though, that she was better in The Sound of Music. She's dancing topless, but there are red X's over her nipples, and we see the words foreign version in red text on screen. So it was censored for America.
The dancer finishes her act, and another woman goes to the men's table and asks for a dance. But we cut away to where the Lovin Spoonful are performing Vision Blues.
And they're doing it on screen. So we see them, and then some dancers in a club. So they're the club band, I guess, for wherever we are. And now we cut to one of the men. This is Phil Moskowitz. He's lying on a hotel bed. He's checking the mattress for bounciness. And I guess the woman that he was dancing with is stripping behind a curtain while he waits. She emerges from behind the curtain wearing only a towel.
Name 3 presidents, she says. Roosevelt, McKinley. Phil removes her towel. Lincoln? He asks. She steps away back into the shower, and the man checks the hallway before he removes his jacket and heads back toward the bed. But as he does this, someone takes a shot at him from outside. It's coming from the building across the street.
Phil grabs his gun and returns fire, but it looks like he got hit and he goes down, and the woman continues to shower.
The shooter rushes over to the hotel room. When he comes in, Phil jumps up and the two of them fight, while Phil throws out animalistic insults, such as Russian dog, Spanish fly.
Phil gets the better of the intruder and then tells him to talk. Who do you work for? The intruder says nothing, so Phil gives him a swirly, and then the man admits that he works for no one. He's a freelancer. Then he cryptically says, beware the man with, over and over again until he's dead.
Then we cut away to a prison where a prison break is in progress. The soundtrack plays Grey Prison Blues by the Lovin Spoonful. There are 2 men waiting by a car next to the prison wall. An escapee atop the wall heads away from them. She leaps onto the top of a car where Phil is making out with his date. I don't know why they left the hotel room for the comfort of a car next to a prison, but here we are. The escapee pushes the woman out of the car, jumps in the driver's seat, and takes off with Phil still in the car.
While driving away, the prisoner reveals that she's a woman and her name is Teriyaki. She thanks him for picking her up and arranging her escape. Phil tells Terry that she's got the wrong guy, causing her to try to leap from the car. She pulls the car over. Phil sidles up next to her and says that he should take the wheel, which he does, but they don't change places. And then they drive off.
So now the two of them are in a different hotel room. Terry is taking a bath and Phil is watching her through a keyhole, at least until she throws some soap into his eye.
Well, she probably heard his drooling and babbling from the other side of the door. Absolutely disgusting. A call comes in on the phone unit in his room. It's HQ warning him about the prison breakout. He has an, oh really, sarcastic attitude.
He's asked to give a report, and he says there's not much to tell, only he was almost shot and killed just before the opening credits.
No biggie.
The 2 men who we saw waiting outside the prison wall pull up outside. They're told they need to take both of them alive.
Later we see Teriyaki has found a slinky red dress to wear. Phil appreciates the view.
Terry still can't figure out who arranged her escape. She had an idea that it was the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, but they didn't have a motive.
She shows him a note that she found while trying to escape. It says, tonight, 2 a.m., everything okay for escape. Car at West Corner. Phil thinks that she dropped onto the wrong car.
He offers her a drink, or a bath, or to show her his collection of off-color Italian hand gestures, or perhaps a naked picture of Hugh Hefner. Terry says she's never met anyone who thought about sex so much. Meet me in the bedroom in 5 minutes and bring a cattle prod, says Phil. They kiss, but it's interrupted by a sound. Phil goes to the door and uses that move where he pulls the rug from under it, and he trips the men standing outside the door. It's the 2 men who drove up and were originally supposed to pick up Terry from the prison. Phil rushes through the door and tackles them and knocks them both out, again yelling out animalistic insults. Saracen pig, Turkish taffy. He notices a femme fatale standing in the hallway watching him. He looks back and someone pops out and bonks him over the head, and Phil falls to the ground unconscious.
When Phil comes to, he's in a very elegant room. It looks like some sort of a palace, but apparently he's in an embassy. A Chinese man brings Phil to meet the grand exalted something or other of Rasper. He's the foreign minister. He says it's a non-existent but real-sounding country. But the foreign minister says that he needs help with that, and there's only one way that his imaginary country can become a reality.
He tells Phil that gangsters have stolen his secret egg salad recipe. They kill, they maim, they call information for numbers they could easily look up in the book. He shows Phil a picture of Shepard Wong, the one who orchestrated the stealing of the egg salad recipe. Wong believes that withholding the recipe will prevent the Prime Minister's country from receiving its rightful place on the globe.
He's hoping his country can be located somewhere between Greece and Spain where it's warm. Phil has no idea what he's talking about. The foreign minister replies that it is written, he who makes the best egg salad shall rule the world.
But don't ask him why egg salad. He has enough aggravation. Then the foreign minister hands Phil a schematic of Shepard Wong's home, saying that he lives there.
He lives in this piece of paper, says Phil, and the only funny joke in the entire movie.
And then the minister summons Teriyaki and her sister Suki. They will be acting as Phil's assistants.
Foreign minister says that they will do anything for Phil. Anything? Phil asks suggestively. Just get the recipe, ass, says the foreign minister. And then we cut to Yokohama Harbor. Terry and Phil are looking at the arriving ships. Phil mentions that the director of the movie is walking through the scene, as is obligatory these days. Terry looks at Phil and offers to make violent love to him. Then she plays dumb when Phil agrees to that proposal. The two of them see Shepard Wong's gambling boat sailing into the harbor.
Aboard that ship, Wing Fat is collecting his roulette winnings. He wants to quit while he's ahead. The croupier goes to Shepard Wong to inform him that Wing Fat has won big and is leaving, and that he suspects that Wong is in possession of the egg salad recipe.
Shepard Wong tells the croupier to keep Wing the mustache man on the boat by any means necessary. Then later we see Wing cashing in his winnings. He's filling a case full of American dollars.
As Wing Fat is leaving, the croupier tells him that he may not want to be leaving so soon. They have women on board. This seems to change Wing Fat's mind. Lead the way, he says.
The croupier leads Wing out onto the deck, and he claps his hands, and a bevy of women emerge from their cabins. Wing goes down the line of women one by one, and finds out that the last one is his mother. She's there because he never calls, he never writes.
And she just wanted to take an ocean cruise. Wing Fat says that the nicest thing about his mother is that she takes a nice punch, and with that he punches her in the face.
Then the croupier rounds the corner of the deck to where Wong is waiting.
That's the way to treat a mother, he asks. Wing Fat takes a picture with a hidden camera in his bag of money, but Shepard Wong sees this, and he says that he wants a couple of 8x10s for himself. Wing Fat throws the case overboard, then confesses that, yes, he did take a picture. Then he says that what he really wants is that egg salad recipe.
It's an egg salad so good you could plutz, he says.
Shepard Wong claims to know nothing about it. In fact, he spits on Wing Fat's recipe.
The croupier waves his arms, and then they're surrounded by goons on all sides. Wing laughs and says, the joke's on you. I threw the bag overboard to my henchman. They look overboard and see said henchman waving the bag overhead as he stands on the back of a boat headed away from Wong's boat.
And he praises himself for being a worthy henchman. Then Wing Fat explains that the picture he took of them was done with a very special camera. When the pictures are developed, all clothing is removed and the subjects appear naked. If they lay a single finger on him, he'll peddle them to every schoolyard in town.
Wouldn't that make him the criminal and not them, though? Anyway.
So they better not mess with him, unless they're all comfortable with their bodies.
Wong says, you win this round, but we'll meet again. Not if I see you first, says Wing, who says that he'll get that recipe, and that now he's going to go home, develop those pictures, and laugh at their chubby thighs.
Now we're back with Phil and Terry, and they're in the back of a taxi.
Phil asks to be taken to the kidnappers. The cabbie takes the fare, and then phones ahead to tell them that they're on the way.
The cab stops at a service station, and the driver steps out of the car. Phil takes advantage of their moment alone to put his arm around Terry, but then the driver returns, and a gas station attendant sits in the front passenger seat, and he holds a gun on them.
And now we're at that cabaret, as the Lovin Spoonful sing Respoken, and people dance.
Now we're introduced to a new character, Cobra Man, who speaks in a bad Peter Lorre impression, and appears to be one of the bartenders at this club, as he's behind the bar with his snake. He says the snake is very lucky and that this is his wedding night. He's going to marry a chicken. Cobra Man delivers said chicken to the snake's cage, and carnage ensues.
A waiter who witnesses this starts crying. He always cries at weddings. Now we're with Terry and Phil, who are tied up against a wall, arms over their heads. They think they're Wong's prisoners, but Wing steps out of the shadows to reveal himself. He says that he and Wong are competitors. Wing tells them that he wants the map of Wong's house and the specs on the safe.
Wing steps aside to let his hoods do the dirty work. One of them is the Cobra Man, and he starts singing Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen.
But that's not the torture that Wing meant.
As he walks over to some electrical wires and threatens to electrocute the prisoners. But the other hood has a better idea. He takes a bottle of alcohol, spills a little bit on the floor at Phil's feet, then lights and drops a match. The small puddle bursts into flames. Wing Fat explains that he plans to steal the recipe, then sell it back to Wong. That's how he makes his living.
The other bartender pours liquor over Terry. Phil says that there's nothing they could do to get him to reveal that the plans are in Terry's hair comb. They rip it out of her hair as Terry protests Phil's traitorous ways.
Wing opens the hair comb and finds some microfilm in it, but it's too small for them to read. Luckily, one of them is holding a magnifying glass.
And then Phil reveals that the recipe is in the safe, and Terry is enraged that he would say so much. Phil says that they'll never get into the safe without a professional safecracker. However, he happens to know one, so they should team up to get the recipe.
And now we're at Shepard Wong's, where a bunch of girls are being inspected for approval by Shepard Wong. He treats them like literal cuts of meat and labels them as such.
A shank, a fillet,
Suki is there among them as the new girl, and as the girls are sent out, she's asked to stay behind to give Shepard Wong special attention.
Now we're back with Terry, Phil, and Wing, who are waiting to hear from Suki. Wing is really impatient, but Terry and Phil tell him that she's wearing a transmitter and they can contact her that way.
And Terry demonstrates how her handbag doubles as a radio receiver. Back at Shepard Wong's, he and Sukiyaki are in bed, and Shepard thanks her for helping to clear his sinuses. She tells him she could really go for an egg salad if he really wanted to show his appreciation.
And he agrees. Next we see them in the car. He asks if she grabbed the mayonnaise on their way out like he asked, and she didn't. He says that that's okay. If there isn't any mayonnaise on the ship, they'll just use Miracle Whip. And then he laughs evilly. She thinks to herself that he's really weird.
They drive to the docks and board the gambling ship. Once aboard, Suki sneaks off to look for the safe, while Looking to Spy by the Lovin Spoonful plays on the soundtrack, which is actually an instrumental version of their song Coconut Grove.
Then the movie cuts back to Len Maxwell and Woody Allen. Len says that the movie so far is probably pretty confusing. Would Woody like to explain what's happened so far? Woody deadpans, no. And now we're back in the film.
Suki is below deck, still looking for the safe aboard the gambling ship. She finds it and pulls the pin from her dress. It's that microtransmitter thingy that they spoke about earlier. She reports back that she's found the safe and tells them that they'll need lots of dynamite. It's a big mother.
A hand reaches out to snatch her brooch/transmitter from her chest. She's been busted by the croupier, one of Wong's men.
So Phil, Terry, and Wing Fat have received Suki's message. They'll have to sneak on board the ship, but admit that it won't be easy. Phil has a plan, though.
Phil snaps his fingers. Leave it to me, he says.
Back on the ship, Suki is being locked up. Shepard Wong is disappointed in her. He said he was going to marry her. He'd already put down a deposit on twin cemetery plots.
And now we find out what Phil's idea was. He's pretending that he's running a crew that needs to fumigate the ship. Apparently there's a rat problem, and they have canisters of cyanide gas.
Phil has disguised himself as the ship's captain with a fake mustache, while Terry, Wing Fat, and one of his henchmen are dressed as the fumigators.
And we see a crew member offloading all the passengers from the ship. And then below decks, Sukiyaki comes to and finds out that she's locked in a cell.
Once the crew has been offloaded, the croupier tells the ship's captain, who is actually Phil in that fake mustache, that everyone else is off the ship except for them and the rats.
The croupier and another henchman are preparing to leave the ship, stuffing money in a bag. The henchman asks the croupier what should they do about the girl, and the croupier says that they could take her with them. And then he laughs disgustingly.
The croupier tells the ship's captain, who is actually Phil in that fake mustache, that everyone else is off the ship except for them and the rats. He does not mention their prisoner Sukiyaki in the hull below.
And then the henchman tosses the cyanide gas canister below decks, which starts hissing, emitting gas.
In her cell, Suki is startled when a rat falls next to her. It twitches and dies.
And she starts coughing.
Phil heads down to look for Suki, but he can't get through the door because of his bursitis. He says he'll be back with dynamite, and Suki, through the door, tells him, yes, go get the dynamite, and also bring a coffee and a toasted corn muffin.
Then we see Phil finding the others and telling them that they have to rig up a charge to blow open the door, and that Suki asks for the toasted corn muffin and a coffee. So they give him their orders as well. But nobody leaves. They actually rig up that charge to blow open the door. And the fuse is about to blow just as Suki picks the lock and opens the door. So before the explosives can go off, Phil grabs the fuse with his bare hands to put it out. But behind the door, Suki faints dead away.
Shepard Wong is at home taking inventory of his men. A henchman tells him that everyone had been removed from the ship, except for the girl. She's dead. He killed her with the pretty smoke. Shepard Wong says that he wasn't the one who ordered any fumigation. It's Wing Fool, you fat, he says. Then he corrects himself. It's Wing Fat, you fool. He's after the recipe.
Now we're with Suki, Phil, and the others around the safe. Suki is blowing the door off the cabinet that protects the safe. She's feeling a bit faint from all the gas she's inhaled. Once they get to the safe, she has to drill a hole around the dial in order to gain entry. Then we see Wong and his men, he's added another henchman, racing to the boat in the car. We're back with Suki, Phil, and the rest. Even though the lock is almost off, Suki asks if she can go to the bathroom now.
And she asks if Terry will come with her.
And then she wants to rip the mask off her face, but Phil won't let her. He tells her that he loves her, and then he serenades her with, "Oh, sweet mystery of life, at last I've found you." Sorry, I can't sing.
Shepard Wong and his men have reached the docks, and they start to board a boat to take them to the gambling ship, but someone says there's a mouse on board. The film is reversed and the men jump off, but then that someone says that he was only joking, so the film is put backward and forward, and the men reboard the ship. And back on the gambling ship, they've broken through the safe door, and they open it, and they find another safe door.
Ah!
This one Suki is able to open just by putting her ear to the door and dialing in the right combination. When the door is opened, a voice calls out, "Hey, shut the door, I'm naked." But it turns out that's just a recording. It's part of the alarm system.
There's a record player in there, I guess.
So the recipe has been retrieved. Wing Fat decides to double-cross the others and grabs Terry and holds a gun to her. And then, to commemorate the occasion, decides to do a few impressions.
Jimmy Cagney's first.
Terry requests he do Cloud Rains, but Wing Fat doesn't take requests.
Phil tries to convince Wing that they still need to work together against Wong, as Wong's men are boarding the ship. Wong has to spend some time ordering his men to not walk off the deck into the ocean, and then they go looking for the safecrackers.
Now Wing Fat is doing his W.C. Fields. He's disappointed because this is the first time he hasn't received applause for his imitations. Then Wing's lookout appears, and it looks like he's warning them that Shepard's men are boarding, but what he's saying is that, yes, those are great impressions, and encourages everyone to applaud. And this is when the group decides to call a truce, and they leave the area of the safe.
They're still in the hold, though. They're individually nabbing henchmen and stealing their uniforms. You see Terry, Suki, and the henchmen coming onto the deck. They're about to get off the ship, but Wong recognizes that he doesn't recognize them. But then he gets distracted, so they're able to take off.
He's distracted because Phil pops out of a hatch. Shepard Wong shoots at him, and Phil drops back down.
Wong decides that he's going to go after Wing himself.
Below, Phil is with Wing Fat. They're suiting up into crew uniforms, but first Phil must choose the appropriate mustache to wear. It's a good thing he saves his old shaves. They come out dressed as Shepard's men.
And make for the edge of the ship. When Wong's men fire upon them, they fire back before leaping into the water.
Now safe, Wing is trying to decipher that recipe, but he can't read it. Phil tells him to just wait. Shepard's ship is leaving tomorrow, but if he really wants that recipe, he won't be leaving without it.
On Wong's ship, the two henchmen are comparing their war wounds and their bandage sizes, arguing over which one is better. Wong is down with them, and he's getting squirrely because that recipe is gone.
Back at Wing Fat's, one of his men reports that Shepard Wong's ship is not leaving tomorrow as scheduled. It's just as Phil said. The phone rings, and Wing Fat takes the call. It's Shepard Wong, and he wants to meet. Phil says that Wong really wants that recipe. He'd never mentioned this, but Shepard Wong has an egg salad addiction, so they need to decipher that recipe.
Now they're at Spy HQ. They feed that tape with the recipe into a machine. Phil produces a special decoder tape from his belt that enables him to decipher the recipe. And then Wing Fat declares his love for Phil.
Now we're back with Cobra Man. He's behind the bar with his snake. He's complaining that his throat hurts because his Peter Lorre imitation is killing him. And next we see that Wing Fat has tied up Phil, Suki, and Terry. Then Wing Fat calls Shepard Wong and demands $1 million for the recipe.
Cash, no pennies.
As Wing leaves, Phil asks him if he thinks Phil will win an award for this picture. Wing responds by beating him up, telling him he's the worst actor he's ever seen.
He's there with his pet. Wing works Phil over with a pipe first.
Then Wing leaves them to the Cobra Man. Cobra Man sets his snake loose.
As Terry, Phil, and Suki kick at the attacking snake, a hand tries to pull an errant hair from the film. And somehow the snake gets kicked or flicked into a live wire and electrocuted.
The action on screen freezes, and the hand starts making shadow puppets on the screen. He makes a birdie.
And then a second hand joins him. It belongs to a woman. Then we see the shadow of two people kissing over a freeze frame of the Cobra Man. The man tells the woman that they can't keep meeting like this. His wife is getting suspicious. And Projection Room Nookie is against union rules. And that's the end of that, because the film starts again.
Cobra Man mourns the loss of his snake.
He takes it pretty hard.
He was a newlywed, after all. He picks up 2 live wires and starts walking toward the trio, and Phil notices a hose filling a bucket of water next to him. Still tied to his chair, Phil manages to kick the bucket over, spilling the water over Cobra Man.
And Cobra Man gets the shock of his life and dies, mercifully for us. And now Wing goes to meet Wong on his ship. Wong has the money and Wing has the recipe. There's a very tense exchange as each gets what they came for.
But Wing Fat double-crosses Wong and shoots him. Now Wing Fat has the money and the recipe. As Wong dies, he asks that they don't embalm him. He wants to be stuffed with crab meat.
Then Phil arrives. Wing and Phil face off. Wing's henchman tells Wing that Phil's gun is empty.
Then Phil addresses the audience and tells us that if we believe in fairies and clap our hands, his gun will be full.
It'll be enough to fill his chambers with ammo.
And it works. He manages to shoot Wing Fat and all of his men.
And the next time he runs out of bullets, Terry and Suki are there to toss him a backup gun. He fires 4 shots and they all hit. Wing and all his henchmen are dead.
Now we're somewhere where Suki and Terry are working out, waiting for Phil to arrive. There's a knock on the door and they excitedly answer it, but it's not Phil. It's a messenger with a note from Phil's doctor. It seems that Phil, as a result of his constant strain, believes that he's a Pan Am jet.
And then we see on the tarmac Phil taking off to destination unknown. He sings the song again. Oh, sweet mystery of life, at last I've found you. And then the credits roll.
And then another version of Pow plays, while Woody Allen lies down on a couch eating an apple as China Lee slowly undresses and the credits are presented.
Then we get a disclaimer that any resemblance to people living or dead is purely coincidental. And then we get another message that shames people who read the disclaimer instead of ogling China Lee as she strips for the male gaze. And just in case there's something wrong with your eyes, they give us eye charts. 11 different eye charts are shown in the credits. As China's about to pull off her panties, Woody sits up and with someone else's voice says, I promised I'd put her in the film, somewhere. And that's the end. Welcome back to the American International Podcast, where we're talking about What's Up, Tiger Lily from 1966.
At the request of Henry G. Saperstein and Ben Shapiro, director Woody Allen took footage from a Japanese spy film, International Secret Police, Key of Keys, which came out in 1964. Allen overdubbed the original with dialogue he wrote. A Wire photo published in March of 1966 shows Allen conferring with Harvey Apple, AIP's New England division manager, and Harold Lovin, the Boston area manager, about the film.
In March of 1966, the Los Angeles Times said Henry Saperstein announced the completion of What's Up, Tiger Lily for American International, quote, with Woody Allen doubling as an actor and adapter for the screen, end quote. Tiger Lily was Allen's directorial debut and his first film since What's New Pussycat, for which Allen wrote the screenplay.
In June of 1966, Charles McCary's On the Town column reported that Lovin Spoonful were signed to write the score for and appear in What's Up, Tiger Lily, Woody Allen's first film for American International. Steve Boone said in his autobiography that we weren't due back in a recording studio until June, but just before we were to depart to Europe, an interesting offer came in that was too good to pass up. The timing was not good. We'd basically have 2 days to record the soundtrack before we left for an important tour overseas.
John Baxter's 1998 biography of Allen stated that Allen was paid $66,000 for his work on the film. Prior to the film's release in late 1966, Allen discovered that Saperstein had abandoned the idea of selling Allen's 1-hour version of What's Up, Tiger Lily to television. Instead, Saperstein padded out Allen's cut to 80 minutes with an animated title sequence featuring a cartoon Woody Allen and the nude leads, additional scenes from International Secret Police, A Barrel of Gunpowder, the third film in the International Secret Police series, and inserts of the Lovin Spoonful, which are meant to establish them as the band playing at the club in the film. What's Up, Tiger Lily was a title that Allen hated, but it was meant to capitalize on Allen's previous film success, What's New Pussycat.
In an interview with Brent Hammack for Vantage Point Interviews, post-production supervisor Richard Crown said, I was involved in the editing, everything, from day one. The scenes with Woody were shot in New York. We shot additional scenes in Hollywood at Allied Artists Studios. I directed, and we shot it. The problem with the movie, when they got through with it, and we added the voice track, was that it was very short. I think it was like 75 minutes.
Crown said that, at that time, the minimum length for a movie to screen was 85 minutes. He said, we had to come up with some ideas on how to lengthen the movie, and that's where some of those Woody scenes come from. I remember sitting in several meetings in Hank Saperstein's office with Woody. How are we going to lengthen this picture up? So we came up with the thing at the very end where he's eating the apple and the girl is stripping. That's my voice. That's not Woody's voice, because we were at an insert stage for shooting small scenes. It was very noisy, so we couldn't properly record Woody's voice. So when it came around to replacing Woody's voice, he was not available to do it. The part of the picture where the projector stops and there's silhouettes of Woody and a girl, that was also my idea. So a lot of the stuff in that movie belongs to me.
The world premiere of What's Up, Tiger Lily took place in Lansing, Michigan on September 22, 1966. Actress and Playboy playmate China Lee appeared at the Michigan State Campus Theater as part of a statewide tour to promote the movie. The film's official release was in November of 1966.
AIP's advertising material noted the film's title as Woody Allen's What's Up, Tiger Lily. Their press book quoted Woody Allen as saying the film was, quote, a bottled-in-bond spy drama. That was very campy, but not for Boy Scouts, unless they're old Boy Scouts.
In an article published in the Sacramento Union in June of 1966 after a show promoted by radio station KROY, Joe Butler and Steve Boone of the Lovin Spoonful were interviewed, and the two mock-argued about the name of their next album, which would either be called Pow or What's Up, Tiger Lily.
And the album, which was called What's Up, Tiger Lily, came out in late August of 1966. I found an ad that said it could be purchased at Gibson's record store in Murfreesboro, Tennessee for $3.29, but it was bargain priced at $1.99 at Jefferson's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
AIP suggested theater owners offer free admission to anyone named Lily, or to hold a contest for someone named Lily to act as a tiger costume-wearing spokesmodel to promote the movie. They also recommended putting on a martial arts demonstration to draw in crowds, and to hold a rickshaw race with local DJs, and a tie-in with the Pontiac Tiger, complete with a tiger stripe painted car and, once again, a model in a tiger suit for a complete tiger-themed promotion.
Taglines for What's Up, Tiger Lily include, it's all about life, love, and fun, and that, sigh, thing we all crave but can't mention in motion picture advertising.
Woody Allen strikes back in the wildest comedy of the year.
It's a hilarious plot to get in the Pentagon's plans.
He's not the world's greatest lover, but 8th place is not bad.
Woody Allen's lowdown on how to make a Chinese fortune cookie.
Passion's plaything, Woody Allen, uninhibitedly extrapolates on life, love, and other important and vital subjects, including the hysterical but happy answer to the civilization's most poignant problem. Does making love give you a violent headache? Or do you get acid indigestion from hanky-panky? And yes, it actually does say extrapolates.
It's a hilarious film for far-sighted people with 36, 24, 36 vision.
See and hear the Lovin Spoonful's new hit, Pow.
A lot of the advertising material we've noticed has absolutely nothing to do with the film, and this is evidence of that. According to Richard Crown, who we quoted earlier, Woody wasn't sure about the picture. When it first came out, he was not happy with it. Except there was a reviewer in New York who was the big reviewer, I think, for Time magazine or something like that. She loved it. Well, that completely changed everything. All of a sudden, Woody liked the picture, and it did fairly well in the theaters. The film critic was Judith Christ. He continued, Woody never liked Hollywood, and he did not like coming out to Hollywood to work. He was very obvious about it, but he knew it had to be done, and we did it. He doesn't talk about the picture too much in his biographies or anything like that.
In his 2014 book, Do You Believe in Magic?, the Lovin Spoonful biographer Simon N. Wordsworth stated that Saperstein added footage of the band after Allen completed his edit. The comedian threatened to sue, but later relented following the film's success. However, on July 26, 1967, Variety reported that Allen filed suit against Kama Sutra Records, an affiliate of MGM, which released the soundtrack album, claiming his image appeared on the cover without his permission. Allen demanded $50,000 property and $150,000 exemplary damages. An unidentified MGM executive implied that there were no legal grounds for Allen's complaint.
Allen said in an interview with Alec Baldwin in 2020 that What's Up Tiger Lily was an odd little abhorrent project. Some guy called me and said he bought a Japanese film and would I dub it with Comic American? I don't count that as anything. I was even going to sue to keep it from coming out because I thought it was such junk. It was successful, so my manager at the time said, shut up and go with the flow and don't make a fuss.
The New York Times reviewer wrote, We never learned the title of the original Japanese movie before Mr. Allen's refurbishing, and what's the difference? Anyone who has suffered through the ineptly dubbed foreign horrors on The Late Late Show and its like must have had the same idea that yielded What's Up Tiger Lily, the new American International presentation. The idea for the satirical adventure is so bright, it's a real pity that the picture doesn't hold up, even with some truly hilarious moments, specifically wisecracks, courtesy of Woody Allen and a battery of 6 comedy writers. Again, some of it is quite funny, but not, unfortunately, for 80 minutes. Not even with the Lovin Spoonfuls, Human, a quartet, and Awful, wedged in for lubrication. But the peppery English soundtrack wears thin as the action churns around in absolute chaos.
Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times called What's Up Tiger Lily the funniest spy spoof of all. He added, the plot quickly becomes incomprehensible. What's important is the wit with which Allen makes a silk purse from a sow's ear. Throughout, his dubbed dialogue is hilarious, and he even gets laughs out of two wongs don't make a white. It's one joke wears a bit by the end. Still, Allen does satisfactorily answer the question of how to spoof a spoof. R.H. Gardner of the Baltimore Sun wrote that What's Up Tiger Lily was funny as far as it goes, but because of its nature, cannot go very far. Once the ridiculous aspect of the work has been clearly established, there is little more the parodist can do without repeating himself. All the better parodies are short for this very reason. Allen, however, tends to go on, carried away by his unusual ability to embroider upon the same joke. In the Deseret News, the anonymous moviegoer said of What's Up Tiger Lily, the movie is either the worst picture in years or there is something special about it that we don't understand. We saw it with an audience of young teens. They laughed all the way through it and applauded several times. There is a story of sorts, a takeoff of James Bond, but what probably gets to youngsters is the fact that there's a rock and roll combo called the Lovin Spoonful that plays several musical numbers. Emery Wister in the Charlotte News wrote that Woody Allen, whose wit is sometimes a little above most of us, has turned a Japanese spy thriller into an amusing farce, though he sometimes has to drag the bathroom floor to do it. The humor ranges all the way from the purest parlor palaver to the raunchiest burlesque house chatter. There's nothing much to this movie, but at least it moves, keeps you laughing, and laughs at itself. John L. Wasserman in the San Francisco Chronicle wrote, Cinematically, Woody Allen is nothing if not invented, but called What's Up Tiger Lily essentially dull. There are some fantastically funny moments, 6 or 7, but the time they take is not many more seconds. Ironically, the qualities which Tiger Lily banks on, novelty and incongruity, are ignored almost completely. The basic premise is brilliant, but its creators seem to have blown their entire supply of ideas on arriving at it. Kathleen Carroll of the New York Daily News said in her review that What's Up Tiger Lily was a wonderfully irreverent burlesque of all the action-packed, oversexed spy spoofs. The gimmick of combining his racy, wacky throwaway lines with the Japanese imitation of Bond movies sparks laughs until the gimmick burns itself out. Howard Healy, writing for the Troy New York Record, said of Allen, he's been getting the type of treatment that makes one think he is some sort of intellectual or sophisticate of note. The fact that he is neither, but rather a man of boringly mediocre talents is emphatically evident in his latest film, What's Up Tiger Lily. It is a tasteless melange of unimaginative attempts at adult humor, whatever that term really means. The dialogue that Allen has supplied for this film, which is laced with suggestiveness and outright tastelessness, hasn't a spark of real wit. Box Office Magazine's review said, when it comes to spoofing, comic Woody Allen attacks both spy dramas and sex in this way-out production. The results are about as kooky as can be imagined, and the sexy scenes are handled for laughs rather than passion. The whole effect is so outlandish and far-fetched that it should probably be double billed on the lower half and directed to audiences which enjoy Woody Allen and his brand of humor. It sounds like those critical reviews have one theme going through them, Jeff, and that is this is a gimmick, which is funny at first, but then it burns out by the end. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. In 1966, this seems to have been a pretty unique idea, something that really hadn't been done before.
Mm-hmm.
I used to watch a syndicated show in the mid-'80s called Mad Movies with the LA Connection, and they would use the same premise. They would take a film and redub it with comedy bits, and they would condense it down to a half hour with commercials, so it didn't get old. And I really enjoyed that show, and I still quote it to this day.
Give me a quote from it.
There was a Sherlock Holmes movie, and Basil Rathbone, after the phone rings, says, "That was a telephone, wasn't it?"
I'm sure it was funnier when you saw it.
Well, yeah, a lot of these had to be seen in context.
And obviously, this was long before Mystery Science Theater was a thing. And so we're looking back at it. It doesn't compare to Mystery Science Theater, which is fresh humor applied. It's not just redubbing the entire dialogue. It's commenting on what's happening on screen and occasionally inventing dialogue for the actors in the movie. But this is wiping out the soundtrack altogether and starting from scratch and trying to create a new movie. So you have to look at it as its own thing. And I guess people thought it was funny then, but it's just kind of lost on me now. Part of that is because a lot of the humor is pretty racist or sexist or both. And so that really takes a shine off the movie for me.
Yeah, a lot of the humor doesn't hold up, but the jokes that do are the really, really dumb ones.
The one about the map.
Yeah, he lives in this piece of paper.
Yeah, that was funny. And then I did like the part where Len Maxwell asks Woody to explain the movie thus far, and he just says no. I got a little laugh out of that. One of the reviews said there was like 6 or 7 funny moments, and I would agree with that. There probably are about 6 or 7 genuine laughs on here, but I definitely laughed more the first time I saw it than the second time, so it just doesn't hold up for repeat viewings.
Well, this is a film that I have a lot of affection for. I first saw it when I was a kid, and at the time I wouldn't have even known who the Lovin' Spoonful was.
Now they're one of your favorite bands.
And their appearance in the film gives me even more appreciation for it.
I did like seeing them. I like their music too.
We saw a reunited Lovin' Spoonful with John Sebastian, Steve Boone, and Joe Butler. Zalianovsky has unfortunately passed away, and Jerry Yester, who replaced him when he was fired, was there in his stead.
Yeah, that was right before COVID. We saw them in concert.
It was like the day before COVID.
Right before the shutdowns. So yeah, we got lucky and got to see them. And it was a really enjoyable show. There were a lot of different performers paying homage to the Lovin' Spoonful's songs. And that probably was the highlight of the movie for me, is the occasional break-ins of them playing or just their music in the background.
Yeah, you can tell it's filler in the film because it basically just stops the action. So you watch the band perform for a couple of minutes, but I didn't mind.
I didn't mind that filler, but there was other filler that we really didn't need. The whole projectionist thing with Woody Allen's silhouette and the woman, and that was dumb. I guess it might have felt really clever and unusual at the time. It kind of reminded me of was it Daffy Duck cartoon where the animator's hand appears in the cartoon and he's drawing stuff for Daffy.
Duck-a-muck.
But that was funny. That was really clever. And this was just a time killer and not that funny.
It does have a disadvantage in that the film doesn't make any sense. The way that it was re-edited, The plot is really hard to follow. We had a very difficult time going over this.
Because what's being said and what's actually happening on screen don't match. So we had to decide, are we just going to go with the dialogue or the action or both? And the two are incongruent. And so it was a little hard to piece it together as a story. I don't know why they needed to put in China Lee's stripping at the end.
Well, he told her he'd put her in the movie somewhere.
But why did she have to strip? Why couldn't she perform in something else?
Well, it was just another joke because they got to do the eye chart. You'd only notice that if you were reading the credits instead of watching the girl.
I was reading the credits.
Well, the joke wouldn't have worked if they hadn't had any alternate things to look at.
I guess. It just seems cheesy now and of its time, closing in on 60 years ago. So I just don't know that this is a movie that holds up.
No, probably not. Like I said, I just have a personal affection for this movie because it's one that I remember from my youth.
I don't think I'll watch it again. I feel like this is a movie with diminishing returns. The second time I watched it wasn't as funny as the first time, and the next time probably wouldn't laugh at all.
It's kind of a shame that they had to actually create a plot to go with this instead of just having more fun with it, because it probably could have been a funnier film.
Mm-hmm.
But they had to have the MacGuffin. So what do you have? What would be valuable to no one? It would be an egg salad recipe. And that's what they used.
Yeah, because when they finally reveal the recipe, it's exactly what you think it would be. Eggs, mayonnaise, salt. That's it.
But the fate of the world seems to depend upon this recipe, or at least the fate of that non-existent country.
Well, they never did get back to that, did they? Like, there is no payoff for that.
No, because Phil is now a Pan Am jet, I guess. That just came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously, the messenger left a message that said, I'm leaving in the original film.
Mm-hmm. Because he didn't want to get tied down by either of the two women.
And Woody Allen just decided, hey, let's make him the jet for one final joke. This is probably the worst joke in the whole film.
That's a pretty stiff competition. I don't know. I'll listen to the album again, but I don't think I want to watch the movie.
Yeah, unfortunately, the album isn't one of the Lovin' Spoonful's better albums either because it's a lot of instrumentals.
That's right. I like them. Although I was having trouble telling them apart. You knew the names of all the songs. You looked up a few while we were watching it, but kind of started to sound the same after a while.
Well, most of them are just variations of Pow.
Oh, that's a good song, though. I thought most of them sounded like the Coconut Grove song, honestly.
Oh, that was just Looking to Spy.
The MacGuffin was deliberately dumb, but by making it deliberately dumb, I think that lessened my interest in the movie. By making the stakes so very low, that joke wore thin very fast. And again, there's just not a lot of payoff.
Oh, there's no payoff in this film.
Yeah. And you want a reward after you sit through a movie like this. You want something to say, well, this made it worth it. And I couldn't tell you anything that made me think that.
No, this movie is very dumb. It's meant to be dumb, and I think it accomplishes exactly what it set out to do.
To me, it feels like a curio from a bygone era. I had a look at it, and now I'm done with it. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing the original movie. I mean, a dubbed version of the original movie, the International Secret Police.
Not subtitled?
Or subtitled, yeah. Dubbed or subbed. I think that might be more fun than watching What's Up, Tiger Lily.
I'm sure it'd be a lot easier to follow, and we would know what they're looking for instead of an egg salad recipe.
Well, it was some sort of microfilm, probably secret plans to overthrow the government or something that actually would have stakes. And the title, What's Up, Tiger Lily, how do you think they arrived at that? I know they were doing a play on What's New Pussycat.
That's the only reason, because it has nothing to do with the film.
Yeah, I thought that was just a weird choice that they went with. I don't know.
Yeah, if they had China Lee in a tiger suit that she took off at the end, it would make more sense.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's cap off this debate on the goodness or badness of What's Up, Tiger Lily, rating it using our AIP scale where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic. How do you grade What's Up, Tiger Lily?
What's Up, Tiger Lily is probably one of the earliest AIP films I had ever seen. I know it's not the earliest, but it's among the earliest. And I've always kind of liked it, not because it was a good movie, but as a kid, I thought it was really, really funny. As an adult now, it's not as funny. And like you said, a lot of the jokes just don't hold up. And a lot of it is very racist and sexist and not to the point of being uncomfortable, but you just kind of wince when you hear some of these jokes. But Lovin' Spoonful are here, and that's always a good thing. We saw them in the big TNT show, so they have made a prior AIP appearance. But because I'm watching this movie in 2025, I'm going to have to give it an intermediate I. I'd like to be able to give it higher, but it's just not worthy. So it remains intermediate. What are your thoughts, Cheryl?
Well, I'm definitely not going to give this a P for pathetic because I do appreciate what they were trying to do. And I do appreciate the Lovin' Spoonful. I enjoyed them. I think that there's definitely a germ of a great idea here. And I think that if someone tried to redo that today, it wouldn't be novel at all. But I think they could do a much better job with creating a new storyline and creating jokes that don't rely on sexist, racist stereotypes. So I think that just the spirit of the project deserves an I. I don't think the execution deserves anywhere near that, but I do appreciate what they were trying to do, and I do want to honor that with a middling grade at least. Even though I said I would never watch it again, I would say that other people should probably give it a watch if they think they'd be interested in this. And part of the problem is that I am not a fan of Woody Allen at all. I don't tend to like any of his movies, and personally don't like him at all for everything that I know about him. So that also is kind of a strike against it for me. I should have mentioned that up front, but like you, I'm going to give it an I because it could definitely be worse. And they were operating with a good idea and the music's good.
The thing about this movie is that even if you hate Woody Allen, you might still get something out of this because this is far from the traditional Woody Allen film.
Right. But it is his humor.
I knew who Woody Allen was as a kid because my dad had been working for an advertising agency, Wiedersheim Strandberg, and they used a Woody Allen lookalike in their promotional materials.
Oh, jeez.
I think there were billboards and everything where they had him lounging on the sign.
Eating an apple?
I don't think he was eating an apple. I know that we had a bunch of stills from this campaign that they did, and I'm not sure why they chose Woody Allen, but that's what they did, and he was kind of their mascot unofficially.
Oh, I think he would have sued if he had known about that.
Probably.
He seemed to be litigious, especially when it came to his image. And this was long before any of his proclivities became known to taint or tarnish his image for some people, not for everybody. But you're right, there isn't a lot of Woody Allen-esque humor in this. It's more slapsticky and juvenile than that. Definitely not sophisticated or New York humor, except for the egg salad part.
So besides What's Up, Tiger Lily, you can also see What's Up at AIPpod.com. That's our website, where you can find trailers, TV and radio spots, posters, and lobby cards for all the films we've covered. You can listen to episodes of the podcast there, and you can find a list of films that we're still hoping to find to cover on future episodes. If you have a line where we can find one or any of these films, you can use the contact form on the site to contact us, or use it to just say, hey, tell us what you liked or didn't like about an episode. Tell us what we said that was wrong, and we'll figure out a way to apologize and get things corrected. Also, there's a link to our store. If you were to follow that link and buy a t-shirt, poster, or mug, you will not only have a nice souvenir of American International Podcast, but your purchase will help keep the podcast going and the website alive. And you can find all of this and more at AIPpod.com.
And even though we never solved the mystery of what was up with Tiger Lily, whoever or whatever that is, we are going to wrap up this episode of the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.